What is the weirdest sensation that you experienced only once? I live in Canada, but one day I woke up at 3 a.m. and there was an elephant in the front yard. A real elephant. I had a very strange, is this real life moment, and wasn't entirely sure if I was hallucinating. Doubting your sanity, even for a moment, is a very strange feeling. I have no sense of smell, never have, and one time I went to an ENT to see if they could find a reason why. He put a camera way up into my nasal cavity to look for polyps or rhinitis, and after a little bit, weird, glowing beams of light started passing across the room. After the third or fourth, I said something like, "I wonder what's out there, the window, that's shining the light into here." He said, "Oh, no, you're just seeing the camera's headlight from behind your eyes." I was struck by lightning when I lived in Florida. It was like the hand of God was wearing one of those prank handshake buzzers and decided to grab my entire body. I woke up to my asleep arm suffocating me. I must have laid on it for a really long time. Then when I rolled over in my sleep, it flopped over my mouth and nose. My arm was so asleep that I couldn't feel it or move it at all. I had to thrash it around to get it off my face. When I was very little, my mom was reading me a bedtime story. I couldn't get to sleep, and I felt bad that she'd wait until I was before she left. So I closed my eyes to pretend I was asleep and opened them again, but it was somehow morning. It felt like a blink. My femur was broken in a car wreck, bad compound fracture. I touched the end of the bone sticking out of the top of my leg, burnt like a mother effer. Midway through high school, I walked out of the locker room outside to go to PE class. The moment I stepped into the sun, something went weird with my vision. Figuring I'd lost a contact on the back of my eye, I went back inside and looked in the mirror. Eyes were still bright blue, but one pupil was huge and the other was a pinpoint. Doctors never did figure out what it was, and it never happened again, but for a while I was excused from all PE and outdoor activity. Got to wear sunglasses anytime I was in the classroom with the sun shining anywhere near my desk, and was checked over 6 ways from Sunday for a head injury. This will be disgusting, but once a fly flew into my mouth, and I didn't know. It was a really, really small fly though. I bit it without knowing what it was, and it tasted like berries or fruit. 10 of 10. Would eat that fly again. Working with styrene, a hydrocarbon solvent. It evaporates readily and vapors are heavier than air. It has a, pleasant to me, sweet smell, and after a while you don't even notice it. I was working in a boat hull using wax and styrene. I could smell it and feel it going into my lungs. After a while, I had the most peculiar feeling. Breathing made my lungs feel cool inside, like menthol does to your mouth. A very strange feeling indeed. I realized the styrene was displacing the air in the hull, and it was starting to also build up in my lungs. I knew I had to get out, and so I did. But at the same time, I didn't really want to. The cool, soothing feeling in my lungs was quite pleasant. The first time I had an epileptic seizure, I was 14 and just went to bed, slowly suffocating while having no control over my body. Must have been only a few seconds before I blacked out, but it felt like forever. I had no idea what was going on, and all I could think of was, I'm going to die. Afterwards, I got pissed at my parents for waking me up in the middle of the night for no reason, being totally oblivious of the seizure and the 3 paramedics standing over me while I was lying on the floor. I lost the ability to read once. It happened when I was a teenager. I could see all the letters, but they didn't make words. I went to the ER, they took an MRI, and they told me they thought it was a migraine due to my other symptoms. One time a friend and I were waiting for a bus. She gently kicked the bus shelter, more of a tap of the foot than anything, and immediately recoiled in pain and fear. Just claimed to have been shocked. Considering it was winter and we were wearing big rubber-soled boots, I didn't believe my friend, so I gave the shelter a little tap of the foot as well. She was right. Whatever the cause, it made our kicking legs numb for 2 to 3 minutes. Still don't understand how or why. Prior to my bypass surgery, I had an angiogram. They basically push a thin, flexible wire into an artery at your wrist and push it along until it's inside your heart. You can feel it wiggling around deeper inside your body than anything else you have ever felt. Disconcerting. Would not repeat. I woke straight up from REM sleep because my phone was ringing, but when I opened my eyes to see who it was, my eyes were still rapidly moving uncontrollably left to right, and I couldn't read the phone because I was seeing everything moving. Terrifying. I went totally blind in my left eye about 3 weeks ago. Got test scans done. They couldn't find anything wrong. I kept walking into people because I had no peripheral vision on my left side. After a few days, I kind of just thought, well, this is my life now, and tried to adjust to it. Then the dark area got smaller and smaller, and my vision returned to normal. Weird. Ever since I started taking one of my medications, I have had a lot of vivid dreams on the regular, but I once had a dream that spanned years, and that was really freaky. During that dream, I became best friends with a dude named Anthony, who was vaguely based on a friend of mine's brother appearance-wise, but wasn't like anyone that I knew at the time. We graduated from university together, went on some giant road trip. I helped him through grieving over his mother's death. We were roommates for quite some time. I watched him get married and got to be the honorary aunt of his first child over the course of a dream. Parts in the middle of those events were really hazy, but it was like there were milestones that marked the years. As interesting as the dream was, and for as long as I slept, I think it was 14 hours because it was right after finals, I'm honestly really glad that it hasn't happened again. When I woke up, I was extremely disoriented and felt like I just had a friend die. It sounds kind of ridiculous, but I really missed Anthony for a full week afterward, even though I knew he wasn't real. I was riding a train at night in Sydney while backpacking through Australia at one point when it suddenly derailed. The guy across from me was thrown out a broken window as the train rolled over. People were screaming, and the train was engulfed in flames as it came to a stop. That's when I woke up to realize that I was sitting exactly where the dream had taken place, and the guy across from me was still sitting there, and in reality nothing had happened. Even the people I had dreamed about were still sitting where I had imagined them, except everything was fine. I was really freaked out, and half convinced I just saw my future death or something. Really tripped me out, and I still think about it sometimes. Really weird experience. Getting a call from my sister. Dad suddenly collapsed at work today, and he died. That moment produced a physical sensation in me that I can't really describe, like when you say something embarrassing and your face gets all hot, combined with an immediate urge to get up and do something. My heart rate slowed to a crawl, but it was beating really hard. It was like fight or flight. But fight what? Fly from what? So many feelings all descending on my mind all at once. It was simultaneously real and unreal. I think that's maybe what a computer would feel like during a blue screen of death. I was little, maybe 4 or 5 I think, but I remember it so vividly. I woke up early in the morning, as usual, so no one else was up yet. It must have been the middle of summer because the sun was already up, so there was plenty of light to see by, even though I had these thick maroon curtains. Anyway, I'd woken up from some kind of dream I quickly forgot. I sat up and picked up my doll from down beside my bed and started playing with it, lying it down to adjust the dress. It didn't take long, maybe 30 seconds to a minute, before I realized something was not right. I looked around and then realized my perspective was all wrong. I was watching myself playing with the doll from the foot of my bed. I didn't freak out. I just tried to fix it by blinking really hard, but each time it just changed my viewpoint in the room. After maybe 3 tries it came right, so I just calmly went about my business. Never ever forgot it though. I still remember it so vividly. Edit. Wow, lots of people have had a similar thing. Definitely possible I've contaminated the memory with age, but I don't think so. It's a vivid memory I've had so long. Wasn't the only really odd thing that happened around that age. For a brief, but unsettling, time of a few minutes at the age of 6 to 7, I forgot how to form the words to talk. Also, around 5, I woke up in the night struggling to breathe. My mom declared asthma, but never took me to a doctor, and it never happened again. So maybe it was a panic attack. And then also at 4, I was supposed to go on stage to try out for a show. I remember confidently strolling onto the stage, starting my bit, and then jolting back to awareness, sitting down on the chairs behind my mom. Absolutely no memory of what had happened. Was just black. I asked my mom what happened. I was so confused, but she sort of just brushed me off, so I left it. One I don't remember from that time was playing in the shed when my mom came to find me, and I was standing on a stack of wood, crying because my invisible friends had fallen down. I got hysterical and refused to move until she pretended to pull them out for me. To this day, her and my nana think it was hilarious. I have heard of a link to imaginary friends indicating vulnerability to mental illness later in life, so I had never risked touching drugs, which can increase your risk of developing mental illness if you are genetically predisposed. I was listening to a podcast recently, The Infinite Monkey Cage. If you're interested, it's the bee's knees, and they were talking neuroscience. Apparently, the way our minds maintain a continuous experience of the world is by building a sort of 3D model in our minds, which it updates constantly based on all the external feedback. Maybe there are times where our brains get a bit of a glitch, and this allows it to switch perspective. Also, only now realizing what an odd kid I was. I was drunk, then stoned. It was the first time I'd done both on the same night. My friend came up behind the couch I was sitting on and hit me with one of those wire head massager things. Not really hit me, she just used it as intended. I was basically paralyzed from the sensation. It was unexpected, and my brain couldn't process what it was, but it was wonderful. And I don't think I'll ever be able to recreate the surprise and exact mix of drunk/high again. I woke up in the middle of the night a few years ago and needed to use the bathroom. I got up and my legs refused to work for some reason. I was just in a heap on the floor for a few minutes until the feeling came back and I was able to get up. It was really unsettling. Having a sensory hallucination while I had scarlet fever as a kid causes very high fever. Felt the sensation of an unpleasant roughness that I was falling through. Taste and smell. Smelling roughness. Weird, I know. And it made me feel nauseous. I get flashbacks to it if I run my nails over something rough, like a chalkboard. This happened a couple of years ago, but I still remember it very clearly. I was walking with a group of friends in a pretty big city at night, 10 to 11-ish, and we were all just walking and talking after dinner and some drinks. I don't really know how to describe the feeling, but out of the blue, I felt uneasy as F, as if I knew something was going to go wrong. That feeling lasted maybe a minute or so, while I tried to tell my friends we needed to go somewhere else and split up, etc. No one took me seriously, and within the next couple of minutes, we came across a couple of armed muggers who made off with a few $100 off us. A CT scan with IV contrast dye. It's like drinking tea that is too hot, but not enough to burn your mouth. You just feel the tea making its entire journey to your stomach. You get that feeling in your chest and pelvic region, and you feel like you pissed yourself. You also get a very odd metallic taste in your mouth. And when it is all said and done, you are so thirsty. I've only had one scan so far, but I might have to have another this year. My brother-in-law and I got shot, among other people. He died on the spot, but I didn't know yet since I was kind of busy trying not to die. The ambulance came, and after a very long surgery, I was resting in the intensive care area when, probably because of meds, I started seeing my brother-in-law. He was there, calm and with a slight smile. I had a quick conversation with him, aloud, in my mind, and then he was gone, as in vanished. I then knew he didn't make it, so when my wife told me, I thought to myself, I already knew that. I told my wife about that later.